What's going on, family? This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Happy Monday, unhappy Monday. I don't know. I'm a little unhappy. By the way, thanks so much for your support of Syracuse Central. We're getting into, I guess, our third month now. August. No, technically fourth. We started in August, if I remember correctly. It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, continue to provide feedback on what you are interested in and what you're not, and what you like, what you don't like. And if you're so inclined, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to build up this show and just have a lot of fan engagement. Okay, so hope you had a great weekend. Mine was chill. Um, just hanging out in the DMV, doing a lot of sports writing, watching games. The ACC is a jumbled mess in football, I'll tell you. And Syracuse basketball has their first official game tonight. So obviously, I'll get more into Syracuse basketball um, in future shows. But I did want to talk about football on Monday and football recruiting. Um, what can I say? This team is not good. And if you've gotten to know me by now through Syracuse Central, or you see me on Running Inside the Loud House, you know that I try and be as positive as possible about my alma mater, even when times are tough, and that included Syracuse basketball last year. So, look, Syracuse football is obviously struggling. The quarterback position is front and center, literally and figuratively, because the quarterback position is the most important position in the sport and probably in all sports. Speaking of sports, congrats to the LA Dodgers. Tough one for the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. But so the quarterback position is really a debacle right now for Syracuse, and that's kind of leading the headlines, so to speak. But this team is they're struggling as a whole. It's not just on quarterback play, and I'll get more to the quarterback stuff in the next segment. But in terms of the UNC game on Friday night, it was definitely trick and not treat for Syracuse. They lost 27-10 to North Carolina, a team that came into that game playing better of late, but they still, up until this game, hadn't won an ACC game and hadn't won a game against a Power conference team. And so they were playing better, and we all know the headlines with Bill Belichick leading the team and all the circus with everything going on there. But they won the game fairly convincingly. Syracuse, again, it was 27-10, and Syracuse, their only touchdown was a scoop and score on defense, Anwar Sparrow. So the offense was anemic as usual. And again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just calling it like I see it. And let me get my notes here. So, so coming into this game, North Carolina, their defense was playing better, and the team as a whole was playing better, but their offense wasn't like super great. In this game, let me get the notes, because I don't remember things at almost 48 years old. Where was it? North Carolina had 425 total yards. Syracuse had 147. Let that sink in. A team that wasn't very good on offense. Now, granted, neither team has been very good on offense, but North Carolina struggling on offense gets 425. Syracuse struggling on offense against a pretty good defense, 147. So that goes to show you where Syracuse's defense is, and that's kind of my point here, is that it's not just on Ricky Collins or Joe Filardi or whoever the quarterback who's going to be the quarterback this coming. Okay, drop me comments. Who will be the team's starting quarterback against Miami this coming Saturday? All right, but we'll get to that in a second. But again, Syracuse's defense is not playing well either. I mean, again, I keep going back to this. I'm not trying to trash our team. I love our team, just generally speaking, because it's my alma mater. But who is playing well on this team right now? Jack Stonehouse, the punter. The kickers really aren't getting a lot of opportunities, so they're not stinking. They're just not doing much either. But like, who's the run game is non-existent. The pass game's non-existent. Syracuse's defense isn't very good. They had a good game a couple weeks ago. What was it? The Pittsburgh game? One of the games recently. They all jumbled together at this point. They were good, but then since then it's just So it's like, where do we go for this season? And I had a piece on Inside the Loud House, maybe you saw, I guess it was Saturday because the game was Friday, and it just talked about how this season started out promising and now it's turned into like an utter disaster, or just like has completely fallen off the wheels, or whatever the cliche. It just sucks. It's sad. It freaking sucks. I came into this season. I try and be a realist. I have orange colored glasses on, but I try and be a realist. They came into this season. They won 10 games last year, but they had Kyle McCord. They had a bunch of other guys that are in the pros now. They lost all those dudes. OG, LaQuinn Allen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Young roster, more prep recruits in 2025 than transfers. Questions at quarterback, so to speak, but then obviously Angeli got on a roll early on, but tough schedule. So we didn't think that Syracuse would win 10 games necessarily, but I thought they could win 7 or 8, and they started off 3-1. They had the loss to Tennessee. Tennessee, up until their loss to Oklahoma over the weekend, looked like a potential CFP contender. But then Syracuse, they blew out Colgate, they got by UConn, and then they won at Clemson. They were 3-1, but then Angeli was out, and so it's like the quarterback play ever since then has been atrocious. But it's not just on the quarterbacks, and so they're 3-6. They've lost 5 in a row. They've got Notre Dame or Miami, then Notre Dame. They have a bye week, then Notre Dame, both road games, and then at our home against BC. Are they going to go 3-9? I assume most people, if you're watching Syracuse Central today, you're going to drop me comments and let me know. Are they going to go 3-9? Miami just lost to SMU. They might be out of the ACC title and CFP races, but they're still a 27. I looked on Sunday, a 27.5 point favorite over Syracuse at home. 27.5 points and coming off a loss. That's how bad Syracuse is right now. So it's just the season, it sucks. And then I see people, because there's a lot of recruits on campus and verbal pledges, and people are, and we've talked about this on Syracuse Central, and some of you people, some of my friends on the show are, make these comments, and I agree with, and because some people are like, oh, all these guys are going to decommit, and some of y'all, especially my one guy here, you talk about, no, they're not going to decommit. They knew that what was happening this season with the schedule and the roster, and then the quarterback position injury. So yeah, but it sucks. It sucks. It's such a bummer season, and I'm still gonna watch. I'll be in Nashville this coming week with my son, and depending on when his basketball game is, I might not get to watch all of the Miami game live. But I mean, I'm still gonna cheer on my team. And then they got a bye week, and then Notre Dame and BC. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna write about it. But it sucks. And some fans are like calling for Fran Brown's job. I mean, what? What are you talking about? He's built up to look. Can we question some of his decision making and some of the other coaches' decision making in certain games, or the quarterback play or whatever? Sure, that's fair. They won 10 games last year. Recruiting's on the up and up, and he's building a culture here. People want to play for him. So like this season's a disaster, and some fans are like, I'm done, but I'm never going to be like that. But that's your right. That's your choice. Like, do whatever you got to do. But I'm not, just throwing in the towel. I mean, the season's over in the standpoint. They're not going to make a bowl and it's a disaster, but like, I'm not going to like stop watching the games. Like fans that are like, oh, don't go to the games. Don't support this team, whatever. Like, shut up. If you don't want to go to the games and you've written the season off, then fine. But like, don't, I see people, it was like last year or in recent years when the basketball team was struggling and they're under 500. I think Jim Boeheim, his first, people are like, oh, don't support this team, protest. That's bullshit. If you don't want to go because the team stinks and you don't want to pay for tickets, then don't go. But don't shit on the team on social media. I just hate that crap. Sorry, I shouldn't be cursing. But in any event, the season's a bummer. I'll get off my my high horse now. I'm just sad. I feel bad for the players. I feel bad for Ricky Collins. I hope Steve Angeli comes back healthy. I feel bad for the team, but again, it's not just on the quarterbacks. But we're going to talk about the quarterbacks right now because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't understand the strategy. I do not understand the strategy at quarterback for Syracuse. And I'm not personally attacking Fran Brown. I'm not personally attacking Nunzio Campanelli, the quarterback's coach. I'm not personally attacking Jeff Nixon. I just, I just don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. I truly do not understand. Someone explain it to me. Can one of y'all please tell me what is going on here? So I don't. So just okay. Angeli's leading the country in passing yards. He gets hurt, season-ending injury. Ricky Collins is the guy. We thought there was going to be a big drop-off. Maybe Brand Brown's comments during preseason camp or whatever were a little misleading or not quite accurate or whatever, but he was backing up his guy. Collins struggles. They go on 0-4. Carney gets a little bit of run, but not really. In that one game, what game was that? Let me get my notes here. I don't have it. Where is it? There was a game earlier this season where he played a little bit. I think it was the Pitt game. I had my notes here, but anyway, like he played a little bit. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Sorry, I'm old. Yeah, he played a little bit. He was 2 of 3 for 10 yards, but then on a 39, a third and long, 3rd and 9, Collins goes back in for him, and then Brown said later on, oh, Carney wasn't quite up to speed with the playbook, and I don't get that, but whatever. And then okay, so, but then a week ago, or not a week ago, but last I think Wednesday in a radio interview, Fran Brown's like, look, I love Ricky, but we're opening this thing back up, so to speak, and he had his chances, and he went 0-4 and struggled, and I'm doing whatever I can to have this team win now, and I'm not throwing in the towel in the season. And then, you would assume maybe it's Luke Carney based on the fact that he's played the most out of any of those other guys between him, walk-on Joe Filardi, and redshirt freshman Jakari Williams, and then the other freshman Bellin. But then Friday night, reports start to leak out, and Joe Filardi ends up getting the start. And people love to talk about how he's a walk-on, but just keep in mind, he's a walk-on because he's a scholarship player in lacrosse. He's not going to get a scholarship for both sports. And by getting a lacrosse scholarship, that frees up a scholarship for the football team. But it's not like he was a scrub in high school. He threw, I don't have in my notes. He played for a team on Long Island as a senior, and he had like 40-plus touchdowns against 3 interceptions. So, walk-on, yes, he's technically a walk-on, but it's not like he's some... People were like saying, oh, we put a lacrosse player in the game. That's a little bit of an unfair context. But again, you put in Joe, and he goes 4 of 18. They have 39 yards passing, which is disgustingly bad. No offense. But then you bring in Luke Carney again he played a little bit, and he had like one pass attempt, and that was when he got sacked. It was like a 3rd and long. So it's like all along we kind of thought that, and again, I'm not at practice, and I have like inside information or intel about certain things, more so recruiting than like this kind of stuff. But like we all kind of thought that Luke Carney was, once Ricky was a starter, that Luke Carney was number 2. But yet they don't trust him to throw the ball, and then he gets passed over by Filardi, who maybe just practiced better this week, and he goes 4 of 18. So who the freak, I'm not going to curse, who the freak is Syracuse's quarterback? I don't understand. It is so freaking weird. I don't understand it. Someone fill me in. Who's going to be, okay, so I'll just leave it at that. Who is going to be Syracuse's quarterback against Miami? And Fran Brown even said after the game, the loss to North Carolina, he was like, I thought for a second about, should I put Ricky Collins back in? But then he was like, it's not fair to him and the other guys. And I agree with that. It's like, once you move on from Ricky, you can't keep putting him back in. But if you're asking me, I still think he gives them the best shot to win, albeit not a great shot. He can throw the ball downfield. He's just inconsistent and doesn't always make good decisions, and is turnover prone. And granted, Filardi didn't throw have any turnovers, but he was 4 of 18, dude. Come on. 4 of 18, that's under 25%. Collins was completing 55% of his passes. Now, again, maybe Filardi, if he plays another game, like he'll do better. But Ricky Collins is still the best of the bunch. So who is their quarterback? You going to let Jakari Williams have a shot, the redshirt freshman? It's just so odd. I don't understand it, and honestly, it's irritating me. Because I'm not saying Fran Brown is being misleading about it, but I just don't, maybe he just doesn't know what to do. It's just a bad situation. It's bad. I'm going to move on. Let's talk recruiting. So, found out about this too late for the show on Friday, but Calvin Russell was back in the house to visit for the North Carolina game on Friday night. He had also been at the Dome. Was it the Duke game? It was one of the games earlier this year. It doesn't really matter. But this one, it turns out, I didn't know it initially, and I didn't have a chance to check in with some people around the within the program or around the program, just because it was a game and then it became the weekend and just like didn't happen. But like based on what I saw on social media, it looks like it was an official visit. And so that was cool. And then some people are like, "Oh gosh, he saw this game. He's going to decommit." Like, shut your mouth. You have no idea what. If you, I'm so irritated with this kind of stuff. If you think that Calvin Russell is going to decommit because they lost again and they're having a bad season, you don't understand recruiting. You don't understand. And I'm not being condescending. I'm being honest. Because if I didn't understand recruiting, I would admit it. Or if I didn't understand X, Y, and Z, I won't pretend that I do. But I understand recruiting. I've been writing about it for over a decade. Calvin Russell committed to Syracuse because his relationship with Fran Brown and his family's relationship with Fran Brown. And he's obviously close with other coaches, and he's close with Autry and the basketball team. And it looks like, he's expected to play for Syracuse basketball, at least initially. We'll see if that, ultimately happens. But it doesn't matter that he knows that Syracuse will have Ricky or Steve Angeli back as their quarterback next year, or someone else. It will not be one of these other guys. It just won't be. Because first of all, if I'm being honest, Ricky Collins is probably going to transfer. Luke Carney could develop into the number 2, but he's not going to be their number 1. I just don't see it. No disrespect, the dude threw for over 10,000 yards in his prep career in the Dallas area, but it's going to be Steve Angeli or a transfer. Anyway, but Calvin Russell was on as official. I knew he was going to officially visit. I thought. I didn't know definitively because I'm not plugged in with him personally, but he hadn't officially visited prior at Syracuse. He had officially visited a lot of his other finalists, but anyway, he took the official. I'm sure it went well. He's expected to sign during the early period in December and enroll in January, as far as I can tell. Obviously, until he signs, there'll be flip rumors and all that crap, but he's coming to Syracuse. And his team, Miami Northwestern Senior High School, was idle this weekend. I assume that's why he was able to do it. And Syracuse only had one more home game coming up. So, again, it was good to see him on campus. Good to see him take that official. He's a 5-star wide receiver in the 2026 class, verbally committed to Syracuse in early July on his birthday over Florida State, Oregon, and Michigan. Miami's been pushing for him ever since the fall. But as far as I can tell, he's locked in. Top 25 national prospect per 24/7 Sports, highest rated commit for Syracuse in like 20 plus years. So that was dope. All right. So speaking of all that, so I mentioned some of the visitors that were going to be on campus. I'm pretty sure on Friday for Syracuse Central. But then I found out about some others after. And one of them is Calvin Russell's teammate at Miami Northwestern Senior High School, and that's Tadarius Hughes, who is a Florida State verbal, 2026 4-star defensive back. He's a top 400 national prospect. Again, he plays for Miami Northwestern Senior High School. Syracuse was like in his top 3 when he verbally committed to Florida State. It was last summer. They offered him in January 2024, verbally committed to Florida State last July, 2 Julys ago. He officially visited Syracuse this past June. And it went well. And it looks like Nebraska's still pushing for him. I have not been able to find out if Syracuse is making a big push for Tadarius. He could have just been coming to hang out with his boy Calvin Russell. They're teammates. And he likes Syracuse. It's not that he doesn't, but that doesn't mean Syracuse is going to flip him. We'll see. But one thing I will say, just to keep an eye on, is Florida State. Granted, they got their first ACC win over the weekend, but prior to that, they had lost a bunch in a row, and Mike Norvell definitely looks like he's on the hot seat unless he gets some more wins the rest of the season. So, could Syracuse make a push? Sure, they could definitely make a push for Tadarius. We'll see. But some other guys to mention. So King Joseph Edwards, who played for Syracuse as a freshman and was a 4-star edge in the 2024 class from Georgia. He's playing for a community college in New York right now. He transferred out over the summer, and I'm not sure 100% why, but Fran Brown has said that he'd like him back with the program. So, but he was on campus for the UNC game, and then there was a bunch of other 4 stars that I'd previously mentioned in terms of both verbal commits, um, and 4-star recruits, primarily in the 2027 class. So, again, it sucks that Syracuse didn't play well, but that doesn't mean it turns off these guys, because they know next year's team will be different. They'll have a different quarterback playing. The young guys on the roster will be older, and they want to come play for Fran Brown. And then one other nugget I got on Friday, but it was after Syracuse Central had gone on the air that morning. So we've talked about him, Isaac Chukwura. I totally mispronounce his name every time. Nice kid, because I've talked to him not talked to him, but I've traded a message with him on Twitter a couple times. Anyway, he's a 2026 3-star defensive lineman. He's verbally committed to Penn State, but after James Franklin was fired last month, he's remained committed, so to speak, but he's taking visits and kind of mulling things over. So he unofficially visited Syracuse last month, got offered, and he confirmed to me that he will officially visit Syracuse for the regular season finale at the Dome against BC on November 29th. He took an OV to NC State this past weekend, and he also is looking to officially visit West Virginia the 22nd of this month, the weekend before the Syracuse. So he plays at the Caravel Academy in Delaware. Delaware is definitely quasi part. It's not part of the DMV, but it's a recruiting focus for Syracuse. And it sounds like, Syracuse is in the mix for him if he unofficially visited and taken an OV too. And, Syracuse was able to flip, what's the dude's name? Haskell, 2026 3-star defensive lineman Alexander Haskell. They flipped him in late October from Penn State to Syracuse. And they've got, they've had other Penn State verbals on campus. And obviously Isaac looks like he's got Syracuse in the mix. So that's cool. We'll see how, the visit goes. I don't have a sense if he's, more likely or not to decommit from Penn State. Maybe part of it also depends on who ends up being their permanent head coach. So we'll see, but I'll keep the intel coming on Isaac and other recruits. And that's going to do it for today's show. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer in the first couple segments, but hopeful Syracuse can at least win the BC game and be 4-8, and we'll look to next year. But I'll keep going with the recruiting stuff as well. Please drop me comments about what you're looking for, and I really appreciate your support. Like I said earlier, if you're so inclined, please tell your friends and hit that subscribe button. I definitely want to grow the channel and have as much engagement as possible, because it's about you. It's not about me. I'm just sitting here chirping off and, spewing out stuff, but then I want the fan engagement on that's what this show's all about. Us going back and forth, agreeing, disagreeing, having fun. It's sports. It's fun. We all love Syracuse. So this is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Have a great Monday, friends. And I will talk to you again on Tuesday. And don't forget, Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Syracuse basketball plays Binghamton in the season opener at home. ACC Network Extra will have coverage coming up soon. Go Orange. Take care, friends.